The Dirt with me, Mike Howell, an economics podcast where I present the down and dirty agronomic science to help grow crops and bottom lines. Inspired by economics.com, farming's go-to informational resource, I'm here to break down the latest crop nutrition research, news, and issues, helping farmers make better business decisions through actionable insights. Let's dig in. Welcome back to The Dirt, everyone. We're coming to you live this week from Boone, Iowa. We're here at the Farm Progress Show. This is billed as the largest outdoor farm show in the world. I haven't been able to see everything yet, but from what I can tell, it's quite an event going on. Joined here this morning first with Mr. Stan Hurd. Stan, how are you this morning?
Good, Mike. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Glad to have you with us. Now, listeners, if you're anywhere close to my age or older, I'm sure you remember on the news way back, I know I do, when I was a kid, every now and then we would see things about the crop circles, and farmers would have a big circle in their field, have various designs in it, and nobody could ever figure out where they came from. Some people said it was a lightning strike, or some neighbors came in and did that, or even little green men from Mars came in and made these mysterious circles in the dirt. And I don't think we ever got a good answer to what was going on. And a few years later, we started seeing corn mazes, and people would come out and actually carve out mazes through the cornfields. And I think I found the answer to all of this and how this all got started here with Mr. Stan Hurd. I was driving down the road coming in, and I saw this big circle out in the field, and I didn't know what it was. I had to stop and look at it again. But Stan, is this all you're doing from back in the 70s when this all first started, or tell us what's going on?
Well, the FBI has talked to me and says I can't tell everything I know, but no, the amazing thing is, Mike, I came up with the idea of creating crop art about the same time that first design was found by Stonehenge. Miraculously, it just happened at the same time. And to be honest with you, they say a couple of Irishmen with 2x4s and a rope are doing those things. I don't really believe it. I'm fascinated by some of these really ornate designs and how people do it. My crew and I have done images in Australia, in Europe, in Cuba, and around the world. And some of those designs are beyond what I could create. And I'm pretty good at what I do. I'm kind of the leader in this thing over the last 50 years. I'm 70 years of age. And I've been doing these for 45 years. But I'm really kind of intrigued by some of that. I know some of it's man-made, and I don't believe in the green men theory or anything else, or geomancy or all of these things, but it's a fascinating thing, and it happens around the world. And you're right about the corn mazes. The guy that did the first corn maze 30 years ago in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, took my crop art book to show the farmers what he wanted to do with corn mazes. I've done a few myself. My daddy was a farmer. My granddad, we came from 7 generations of farm people, and I left the farm and became an artist. But then I returned to the farming, to agriculture, to make my art kind of out of respect for the people of the land.
Well, Stan, it seems like we may have kind of started this conversation kind of in the middle of the conversation. I didn't really introduce you and let you tell what you do exactly. Sure. You kind of touched on that, but let's back up just a little bit and tell everybody exactly what you do around the world.
I'm from a small farm town in southwest Kansas. I grew up on a tractor, as did my brothers. We all farmed from a very early age. I went off to art school, wanted to be a rock and roll musician, grew my hair long and put a puka shell necklace on. And about 10 years later, I kind of returned to the farm and worked with my dad a year. And I was an artist. I was a good painter. I painted landscapes and all kinds of things. And then I decided to take it on a larger scale. I started doing murals, and then ended up coming up with the idea of creating an image on a field. I grew up on a field. I knew tractors. I know John Deere. So I ended up doing the first image on 160 acres so that airplanes flying over the great Midwest had something to look at 30,000 feet. And I've been doing that ever since. I've created maybe over 100 earthworks, one in China, one in Brazil. I've created images all over the world. So I'm often asked to get involved with people trying to promote their storyline, their product, or their equipment. I was really enjoyed, coming up to Boone, Iowa, and working with Nutrien and visiting with the Nutrien people here and creating an image for them. So we basically knock an image out of standing and existing crops. Then we add mulch and all kinds of things. And some of them couldn't even be permanent.
Stan, if you would, tell us a little bit about the design that you have here at Boone, Iowa this week.
The little granule guy is a kind of a caricature And he's got a smiling face and big bulgy eyes, and he's got a hat on with ESN on. It describes the granule that is actually put into the ground to help the crop grow. I'm learning more about all of this. I grew up on a farm, but I've been left behind a little bit by all of the things that are going on in farm world. I've run more tractors than probably half the people in this crowd, which is kind of amazing because I use 3 or 4 different ones on every project. But we ended up coming up and finding the acreage on 30 highway here so that people could at least see something was going on. We're right off the end of the airport. And we created the image of Granule Guy with his hat on. Basically, it just says, feed your fields. So it's a catchy way, and it tells a story that visually is kind of interesting to people, especially younger folks, I suppose. Usually people, when they see that tractor on the field and they realize that that's an acre, it's a football field in size, you get the wow factor. And I think that's what they're hoping for here, is that this story spreads a bit, that we've created this image and we're supporting their product. And, Nutrien's a great group of people to work with.
So what is your hope that people are going to take away when they drive by and see this exhibit on the side of the road here?
Well, we're in a world where there's everywhere you look, there's a billboard and a barker on the street selling their product. It's kind of overwhelming. So I hope people stop a minute and just think about where our food comes from. The guy who gets up every morning and plants the crop and tends the animals and does all of that to feed the rest of us. If my work does that, it's a tribute to my father, mother, and my family and people who work the land.
Okay, Stan, we really appreciate you being with us here today. Hope you enjoy the rest of the show, and we appreciate the farm art that we saw down the road today. Listeners, if you have a chance, I highly encourage you to drop by while you're at the farm show and take a look at the farm art. Well, listeners, we're back at the Farm Progress Show here in Boone, Iowa. We've got several farmers that we're going to talk to this week and talk about the current conditions, see what's going on out in the field. I've got several of them, and I'll let them introduce themselves to you. If you will, give us your name and where you're located.
Hi, my name is Elliot Scheck, and I'm from Grinnell, Iowa.
Hi, I'm Mark Bierscheuk, and I'm north of Newhall, Benton County, Iowa, and corn, soybean, alfalfa, raise a cow-calf herd.
Okay, that sounds like enough to keep anybody busy. How's the show going so far? You enjoying yourself at the show?
Absolutely. A lot of new things and always some fun things, too, to see.
I'm Don Habben from Tug Hill Farms, which is up north of Morrison, Illinois, kind of northwest part of the state.
Okay, Elliot, glad you're here with us today. How's the crop looking? I understand you're growing some corn and soybeans. How's the season looking so far?
So far, considering the conditions, it's pretty good. We were very hot, very dry most of the summer, and we were really worried about our corn and our soybeans. But luckily, we're actually okay. I would say our corn is probably on par for average yields. Our soybeans, this 2 inches of rain we had a couple days ago really helped, and that's going to be the difference maker, I think.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about the rains that came through. Fortunately, y'all didn't get the 9 and 10 inch rains that we got down in the south part of the country. That's pretty devastating down there.
I'd call this one of my best crops of my farming career. We have had 8 inches of rain in July. We finished June with a big rain up at the Benton County Fair there that went through, and we've had 4 more inches in August. And so, that being said, the important things like fungicide and late season nitrogen application are, I think, going to be rewarded at its best in a year like this.
That sounds great. We're glad to hear growers are having a good year this year. It's not that case everywhere we go. So,
Up in my area, they look really good. My area and a little bit north of there, we got some heavy rains here a couple weeks ago, so there's some flooded out areas. I got impacted by that just a little bit. I think it's going to recover, kind of ding the beans a little bit, but overall the crop looks really good this year.
Okay, yeah, that seems to be the way everybody is. You either get the rain and have a really good crop, or you've missed the rain and don't have anything this year, feast or famine. So, one thing that we're wanting to talk about this week is residue management following corn. That's really important. There's nutrients tied up in that residue, and we don't want to lose those nutrients, especially this year, as expensive as all these nutrients are. So, if you would, tell us a little bit about how you're managing the residue and then taking care of that situation.
Typically, we let Mother Nature just take its course. We are true no-till. We try not to turn the dirt at all. The only thing we do in the springtime before we plant again is after anhydrous and before we plant our soybeans, we run a rotary harrow over, kind of like give a nice even bed on top, knock the corn stalks down. But otherwise, we typically try to let Mother Nature take its course.
Okay, and over the course of the winter, most of that residue will deteriorate and go back into the soil, and you don't have to worry about anything at planting time the next year.
Typically, there's some years, gully washes, stuff like that. We do go out and try to till and kind of mix it up in and get a better, no ditches when we're out planting. But otherwise, Mother Nature does pretty well for us, and that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, we try and no-till into the corn stalks and not move the soil too much. And we strip till in the bean stubble when we can most of the time. If we get a large buildup over the years, we do have to sometimes pull in there with a straight line disc and get it beat down a little bit. But we're trying to keep all of our water. We're trying to keep all of our nutrients where they are on our farm because we paid for them. And that's a much better thing than having anybody else have to deal with our problematic nutrients that get away from our farm. And we're just trying to do a good job, the best we can, and on the least amount of fertilizer and make the most food, which is safe for the world to eat.
Well, I got a lot of bottoms ground, so typically to get it to dry, I got to get mine chiseled under. So I'll mow off my stalks and then I'll chisel them under. I do got some hillier ground where I'll either leave it, stand and no-till it, or I sometimes mow it if it looks like there's going to be too much stubble for the next year, but most of it gets plowed under.
Okay, thank you so much for stopping by. Enjoy the rest of the show. We're back. We're joined with Dr. Karl Wyant. The boss has joined us again. Karl, it's been a while since we've had you on the program. Glad you could just stop in and join us today.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for having me back.
So, Karl, we've been talking to growers coming through here at the booth at the farm show today, talking about residue management in their crops. We know there's a lot of nutrients tied up in these corn stalks, and wanted to figure out what the best way to handle this residue is. Do you have any advice for growers? What's some different ways they can manage this residue?
Yeah, it's a great question. That residue contains substantial amounts of NP and K, micronutrients. And what we found here is that growers that are really on that leading edge of residue management, doing something with the rest of the crop, besides selling the harvested portion, doing something with the rest of the crop has become a critical part of a lot of field and soil management programs. And so when you come to the end of the season, you have a couple of options. An old school option was to burn the residue, but that is slowly losing favor in a lot of our regulatory districts here and across the nation and globally. And the problem with burning your residue is you lose the nutrients. So you don't have them. They can volatilize off, they can burn off, and so you don't get that fertilizer, those nutrients back into your soil. Another option for residue management is to physically manipulate it, and that's a lot of tillage, disking, getting it back into the soil. And then there's this whole other class of products that have come on board within the last, I'd say, 15 years, and that's where we're applying microbes or enzymes or microbial foods, and we're actually using the product itself to help hasten decomposition and to help free up that NPK or other nutrients that are in the residue.
A lot of our growers mentioned that they were either letting Mother Nature take care of decomposing this residue, or some were doing various amounts of tillage from a light disc into a deep chisel. So go through the processes that you just talked about, starting with burning, and give us the pros and cons of each one of them.
Yeah, so I'll start with burning because that's an easy one to set up a lot of cons for. Pros is you get rid of the residue very quickly. You just have to go burn it, put it in a pile, or burn that straw off the field, the whole field. The cons are obviously the air pollution, but I think another piece to think about is actually losing the nutrients through the burning process, and that hasn't gotten as much publicity as the air pollution has. With the tillage and disking and deep ripping and incorporating the residue into the soil, one pro is that you get that residue in contact with the soil and the soil microbes, and that can help to speed up that decomposition and, as you said, let Mother Nature take over and just put that residue on the right path to be removed. The cons are that if you're trying to go down some of these soil management pathways where you are trying to improve your soil structure, that then disking and deep ripping might no longer be an option for you. And so you're going to have a significant amount of residue accumulate on the soil surface. And that's where some of these chemical products come into play, whether they're some of the enzymes that are out there, the living microbial communities, the microbial foods, or even some nitrogen. Some of these other products that can be sprayed on the crop trash can help decompose that crop trash when you don't have those other tools available. The only con is that those products cost money at the end of the year, and they need to fit your application system and how you can get it out.
Dr. Wyant, we appreciate you giving us all this information, giving growers a lot to think about. So as you know, we've started talking about tailgating at the end of these episodes now. What's your football team and what's your favorite tailgate food?
My favorite football team is the Arizona State Sun Devils. Go Sun Devils. And my favorite tailgate food, very, very southwestern here of me, but it's carne asada tacos with green chili verde sauce. I highly recommend it. If you ever never had that at a tailgate, it'll blow your mind. It'll change your life.
Okay, we'll have to dig out a recipe for that one. That's not one we commonly cook here in the South. You're talking Pac-12 football. We don't know a whole lot about that over here, but to each his own. We won't rub you too hard about that today. So I think what we're going to do for the tailgate this week is kind of inspired by being here in Iowa this week. I've had several really good pork chops since I've been here, and we're going to put some pork chops on the grill and grill those up. And, you know, Iowa is one of the leading states in the country for corn production, so we're going to do some roasted corn. Now, the way I do my roasted corn is we always have a late patch of sweet corn growing somewhere around, and I'm going to pull some late sweet corn, get that on the grill. Now, we did this back 4th of July and had some family over for the 4th of July, and my niece had never had the sweet corn cooked this way, and she kind of thought I was crazy when I threw the corn straight on the grill, but she said, "Don't you have to shuck it first?" I said, "No, this is the way it works." We put the whole ear on the grill. We don't shuck it or anything, and you let it get on there and kind of roll it around every 5 or 10 minutes, let it get toasted all the way around. And what it's doing is actually steaming the moisture in those shucks, and you're actually steaming that corn on the cob. But it'll burn off most of the silks, and you shuck that and coat it down in butter, and it's really hard to beat. Let's take a few minutes now and just talk about the corn industry in the United States. The United States is the largest producer of corn worldwide, but we don't really consume that much corn when we really get down to it. Most of it goes into feed for livestock. Most of the corn is grown here in the Midwest, goes to feed for livestock, as we mentioned, and more these days is going into fuel. Very little of it actually goes into human consumption. Dr. Wyant, do you have any other comments about corn?
I really like your comments about sweet corn. Don't forget popcorn, another great fall treat, and you can treat your popcorn with salt and pepper, and there's lots of other additions. You can put red chili powder on that and make it a little bit different, or you can even go with some cheese on your popcorn and make it super different. But yeah, don't forget all types of the corn that you can eat as a person.
And that's right. Now, a favorite around my house is to take a bag of M&Ms and drop in that bag of hot popcorn and kind of melt those M&Ms into it. A totally different taste there. Well, we had another great tailgate party this weekend. Everybody loved the chicken and the smoked sausage and had a lot of fun before the ball game. And the ball game turned out even better. Poplarville Hornets were able to defeat the Pearl River Central Blue Devils 45-3. Got the season turned around and on the right track now. Next week, they'll be playing at home once again. We'll be playing Lumberton this week. Everybody needs to join back in next week, find out how the football team did. Listeners, we appreciate you tuning in this week. And as always, we encourage everybody to give us a rating, let us know how we're doing. And to help out with that, we're starting a promotion this week. If you'll go to our website, that's www.nutrien-economics.com. And that's economics with a K. You can find out all the details on this. For the first 75 people that sign up, follow the program, give us a rating, and pass the program on along to your friends, we're going to send you a pair of Skull Candy earbuds. Thanks a lot for listening. Until next time, this has been Mike Howell with The Dirt.